Alright, so the 275th YCS just took place in Lille, France, and it marks the last big event of this format before Rage of the Abyss just splashes some new, insane, and exciting cards into the meta. So today we're going to be taking a look at everything that happened, including the top cut representation, some of the most played cards, and just stuff that went down in general. Now, quick disclaimer, of course you can see that my setup is completely different. Me and my husband actually moved, and I have it's not a forever setup right now, but it's just so I can build my actual setup, which is not made yet. So you're gonna be chilling with me for a while in the kitchen until I sort those things out, but hopefully it looks okay, and most importantly, hopefully it sounds okay. So thank you for your patience while I work on the setup, and yeah, please make sure to like the video if you enjoy it, and share all of your thoughts if you were maybe there, what you played, if you were just watching, what you thought of the stream, and all of that. And before we jump into the video, today Sleep Chief is dropping a beautiful dark art collection, so at 8 p.m. Central European time, make sure you hop on their website, and of course use code SHADOW for 5% off. So let's jump into it. First, we're going to be talking about top cut representation, and of course comparing it to the total representation of decks on day one. So taking a look at the deck breakdown for day one, the first thing we notice is of course Fiendsmith Yubao at 16%, which was completely expected. We are still in this format, not Rage of the Abyss, where Azamina is just going to take Snake Eyes over the edge and make it this completely scary broken tier 0 deck. But for now, Fiendsmith Yubao is at the top of the meta. And speaking of Snake Eye, of course we have it on the day one breakdown at 7%, because naturally many players decided to still play this deck because it is solid. However, if you look at top 32, the conversion rate was not high enough for the Snake Eye deck to even have like a sliver of the pie chart. It's actually going to fall under the other category alongside some other decks, and Fiendsmith Yubao is at 34%, so amazing conversion rate for Fiendsmith Yubao. It is an extremely solid deck. It does take skill to pilot, but I feel like, you know, judging by the conversion rate, the players that actually decided to play this deck really came prepared. Let's also talk about Tenpai. I would say Fiendsmith Yubao, Tenpai, of course Snake Eye as well, and Ritual Beast would be, in my opinion, considered some of the top meta decks right now. Another one is Chimera, but I'm jumping ahead. Let's go slowly. Tenpai is just incredibly solid at countering Fiendsmith Yubao and pretty much any kind of Fiendsmith variant and most of the top decks of the meta because of Shifter. And another Shifter deck is Ritual Beast as well. Now, both of these decks don't only rely on Shifter, they actually do plays. Like Tenpai Dragon just plays a tiny engine and a huge amount of non-engine, which can be very varied. So it's also kind of a mind game when you're up against Tenpai. And as for Ritual Beast, you don't see it on the day one representation, but it's actually represented at 6% in top 32. The deck is incredibly solid because it's incredibly tough to hand trap. Sometimes you'll be able to use a Nibiru well, but it's not going to happen all the time. And under Shifter, you can't use the likes of Veiler, Droll, Ogre if you want to play it. So it immediately turns off some hand traps, and then it's also resilient to other ones. So Ritual Beast is just as hard as it is to pilot. If you master it, I think it's actually a really tough deck to beat. It also plays Dominus Purge, which is one of the cards that was seen specifically in Ritual Beast, but different decks can play it. I would say Dominus Purge and also another Dominus card from Rage of the Abyss are like the new hand trap cards like Infinite Impermanence used to be. And I think it's kind of cool because they have very specific effects and can be used in specific decks, which I'm actually not against because it helps push those archetypes further. And jumping back to the day one representation, Runic is also represented. Runic Whitewoods, I would say, is also one of the top decks. It is not exactly at the Yubel level, but it's incredibly solid because Runic cards function so well going second as well. And of course, going first, you draw a ton, you go through your Whitewood stuff, and the deck is like, it's just so nice. It's like the new and improved Joshua deck from Bologna, and now we're approaching another Bologna and Whitewoods might do well. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I would say it's a solid pick for this format right now. And also Labyrinth we can see over here, as well as in the top 32 breakdown. And speaking of Joshua, he also played Labyrinth and almost made it to top 32, which is, it's a solid pick for this format. Not the most obvious one, I would say, because like Fiendsmith Yubel is still like the best deck, but it's kind of tough to go up against Labyrinth a lot of times because you don't really have back row removal and you kind of have to play in every single interruption and hope you play through it well enough. And as for the last deck I want to talk about, it's going to be Chimera. Look, if you're ever on DB, for the most part, what you're encountering is going to be Chimera. Like, the deck is literally, it's so solid right now. I cannot even deal with it. Like, every single time I encounter it on Dueling Book, and it's not like I'm losing to it. It's just that the matchup, specifically for the Yubel deck, is kind of awkward sometimes because they do so much. It's like, sometimes they open well enough and you just cannot beat them. Not one hand trap is going to stop them because they have extenders, and the Fiendsmith stuff really push this deck forward. You put up the Caesar early, so you force them to have an Ibiru, and it's just like, the deck is good. Like, every single piece of support the deck got, and it wasn't even direct support always, like the Fiendsmith stuff, they can incorporate it. It just made the deck better, and I would say it's kind of a tough matchup if the deck is piloted well. So Chimera managed to squeeze into top 32 as well. We also saw Voiceless Voice, and of course, Rika. Now, Julius is playing Rika. I would say him and Jessica are like the go-to Rika people, pretty much. The deck is really, really good, but it's also incredibly tough to play. So it's obvious that a player is incredibly well-versed with the deck when they're doing as well as they are consistently. The combos are convoluted and long and hard and just, yeah. It's tough to disrupt them as well because of the one-card combos. So meaning you just have a lot of extenders in case your one-card combo doesn't go through. And it managed to go quite far in Top Cut, actually, which is, of course, impressive, but also kind of not surprising since we're in Europe. In the end, to no one's surprise, really, Yubel ended up winning the entire event. And like I already talked about, what makes this deck as good as it is, it's just an incredibly strong and resilient deck. It plays through hand traps like it's nothing. The existence of Phantom makes everything much, much easier. And you have so many extenders that your opponents literally just hand loop themselves for the most part. And the conversion rate was high. The players were skilled with the deck. The gameplay was good. And honestly, to me, it was a really enjoyable event to watch because I really like Yubel. But yes, YCS Lille won by Yubel. And we're on a cusp of an extremely scary format with Azamina, so I think we have to enjoy this one for as long as it lasts. Now, next up, I want to focus on some of the notable cards from the event. We're, of course, going to be taking a look at the cards that saw most play, but first, I wanted to mention Honest, because this was quite a thing when Honest was dropped in the middle of a Pearly matchup. I feel like this entire YCS was kind of like Edison themed, and I swear I'm not biased, but we literally saw Judgment Dragon being played in the Lightsworn pile, which I also wanna talk about because it was like kind of cool to watch it play. I think it did a lot of plays, didn't end on too much, but the deck was still really cool. So I don't know, share your thoughts about the entire Lightsworn Fiendsmith pile. I really enjoyed watching it play. It's just that the end boards weren't that great, which is, you know, it's kind of sad. The deck is cool. It just seems like it's missing some really good cards that actually do a lot in the graveyard. The cards that you mill, like Kildo and Black Goat Labs and stuff like that, it managed to stop the opponent. But I still feel like this is only a shade of what used to be the pile decks. Hopefully this deck sees more success because it was really, really cool. But speaking of Honest, another Edison card, we saw Pearly, which played Herald, Honest, Eva even, which in my opinion was such a cool tech. But let's focus on some other actually meta-relevant cards. First, I want to talk about Silhouette Rabbit because it was literally in almost every single deck. And for the most part, players were going for the angel statue, of course, which is just such a neat interruption, being a trap card that's able to be special summoned as a monster. But we also saw a specific trap card seeing play in the Memento deck, which is kind of nice because like Rabbit is not just used for the same thing over and over again. So that was cool, but for the most part, people just played Angel Statue, which is fine. So my point is, if you can fit this into your extra deck and you have like some random monsters lying around at the end of your combo, just go for the Rabbit and have an additional interruption. Now, as for other cards, we did see a lot of hand traps still. Some of the notable board breakers would be Droplet, and some players play Dark Ruler, some players played Evenly as well, but Droplet was the best one next to Eclipse. Now, Eclipse is something I also want to focus on. I genuinely think Book of Eclipse right now is one of the most broken cards because it deals with a lot. If it doesn't force interruption, it literally just deals with the field. So it depends. Like if your opponent has a Desiree or something, of course, you're going to trade with a Negate or a Varudras. But if they don't put up Negates, you can just easily clear everything off. And to round the video off, I also want to talk about Spooky Dogwood. Now, please share all of your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this card is necessary? Because if you watched the Herman Hansen match, like, he's an impressive player, first of all. Like, it was just the way he navigated that, and he managed to knock about 22k life points from his opponent in a couple of swings because his opponent didn't do much. So it was possible, but just finding yourself in a situation where you have to navigate around Dogwood is kind of, it's tricky. And we also watched the Gabriel Nets match where it didn't he didn't exactly misplay. It was not a misplay. He just found himself in a situation where no play was actually good or optimal. Like just, I don't know. I don't like it. Please share all of your thoughts, but I've been seeing more and more of this card. So please let me know if you still feel like it is necessary in the meta, if it's something you would want to play, and yeah, how you feel about it. And all of that is going to round out today's video. I really enjoyed watching this event. I'm just a little nervous for the upcoming format. So let me know if this format is more enjoyable, or are you actually looking forward to Rage of the Abyss, Fuvaros, Azamina, and all the rest? Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Share all of your thoughts in the comments. It really helps the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.